We're going to now see how to get our code editor. So I'm going to type in Visual Studio Code, and this is the editor that we're going to be using. It's at code.visualstudio.com. So I'm going to go there. And right here on the home page, you can learn more about the editor. But of course, as we go through this course, we're going to learn quite a bit as well and really learn what we need to know rather than just going through everything and doing a whole tour of this editor. But here are some basics about the editor. So it's cross-platform. You can use it on Windows. You can use it on a Mac. And also, it is free, so you don't have to pay anything to use this. Now, one of the reasons I really like to use this editor is because, well, it's a great editor. And then also, you have an integrated terminal, so you don't have to keep going out to your terminal or command line to run different commands at the command prompt. So you can say right here inside of your editor and pretty much do everything. When we're needing to go into the browser, of course, we'll do that. But the two tools, as we move forward through the course, are going to be the editor and the web browser. And that really makes things fairly simple in regards to our development environment and the kind of workflows that we're going to be using. So to get Visual Studio Code on your machine, go ahead and download it. I'm on a Mac, so you can see here, download from Mac. And then you have the other different operating systems that you can download it for here. But it should just auto-detect whatever you're on, so go ahead and install it. While you're installing it, one thing to keep an eye out for, what should happen at the beginning of the installation, is do you want to integrate, depending on your OS, do you want to integrate with Finder or do you want to integrate with Windows Explorer so that you can, or add a shortcut so you can quickly launch Visual Studio Code. So at the terminal, you can just type in code space dot, and it will launch from the folder that you're inside, which makes things really easy because it will open up and have that folder there, and you can start going ahead and adding your files that way and doing any kind of folder exploring that you need to do right there inside of Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to go out to a command prompt and go ahead and launch Visual Studio Code, and you'll see that shortcut I'm talking about, and then also we get to see the IDE in action. All right, so I am at my command prompt. I'm inside of a folder I've created for this project, so hello world right there. And if I go ahead and check the contents, you can see there's nothing in this folder at all. So this is the shortcut to launch Visual Studio Code right from this folder. So I'm going to do a code space dot and go ahead and launch Visual Studio Code. All right, so here I am. I'm going to go ahead and contain the full screen. All right, so you can see there's no files. This is my folder right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open up the command prompt. So I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Integrated Terminal, and down here is my command prompt inside of that folder. And if I ls this, you can see once again, there's nothing there. So this is really convenient. I don't have to worry about going out to my terminal. Okay, so this is what Visual Studio Code looks like. We have on the left is where our folders and our files are going to appear. So subfolders in this case. I'm going to create a file just by clicking right here on this plus with this new file and just call it index.html. And you can see here it is open. So here's our welcome. I can click the X, close that. And then of course this is where we're going to paste in our code from Bootstrap. And then we're going to check out what our first initial page looks like. So this right here will create folders. I'm going to go ahead and just create one and call it source. And actually I would want to put index.html inside of there. So you can see now it's inside of that folder. And if I go ahead and click, it will open up. So those are pretty much the basics. This is about as much as we're going to do. We're going to, of course, see the code highlighting and the other features the editor has as we walk through the course. So if you're using something like Atom or some of these other popular text editors, they're going to work just normally as you would want them to the way we're doing this. So you may have to jump out to the terminal, but if you're used to that workflow, it's probably not much of a big difference. So next what we're going to do is go ahead and get Bootstrap 4, initialize our project, and start moving forward with creating a simple hello world example so we can see how everything comes together. I am back in the web browser here at Google. So what we're going to do is go to the Bootstrap website. And I'm going to type in get Bootstrap, and we're going to go ahead and go here. So this is at getbootstrap.com. So if you want to get the current release, you can just download that and do an install. That's not the route we're going to go though. I'll show you how we're going to do that. So the current one here is the beta version. So all the alphas are done at this point. There shouldn't be any major breaking changes now like there was with the alphas. So if you've never seen this website before, there's a lot of great documentation on Bootstrap. If you go into here, we're going to make use of some of this in just a little bit. We're going to use the quick start to get the code going inside of Visual Studio Code, and then we're going to do some initializations with another tool. So over here they have a few examples as well, what you can do with Bootstrap. And we're going to use a tool called npm, which is a package manager. So if you haven't worked with package managers, the way they work is that you mainly use them through the command line, and some of them will integrate with your IDE, and you can use the UI there to download different packages. So these packages are going to be things like Bootstrap, jQuery, Tether. We're going to use a tool to help us with builds, pre-compiling, and different kinds of tasks like moving files called Gulp. That's all going to come from the package manager. So to get the package manager, I'm going to open up a new tab. We're going to go to Node.js. And it's actually nodejs.org, so I'll click that. All you need to do here is download Node. That's going to have npm. It's going to give you everything you need on the back end to have the development environment running the way that we're going to want it to. So we're going to see how to use npm here shortly. What I'm going to do is go back to the home page and scroll down. We're going to see a few different ways to get Bootstrap onto our machines. So the quick way to do it, which we're going to look at first, is to use the CDN. And this is how we're going to start off with this. So to get that, we're actually going to get a starter template. So I'm going to go to documentation again. And then over here on the right, we have starter template. So I'm going to copy all of this and go back into Visual Studio Code. And so here's our index.html. I just want to paste into here and save. So at this point, there's not much going on. And if I wanted, I could go ahead and look at this inside of the browser. It would be fairly simple. And in fact, we're going to go ahead and do that. So if I ls now, you can see I've got my source folder. If I go ahead and change into it, and I can see I've got my index.html. So again, the command prompt, everything we need right here inside of this integrated terminal. I'm going to go ahead and open this into the browser. All right, so there's our hello world. Very simple, but we are making a little bit of use of the fonts here. If I go ahead and inspect this, and down here, I can open up and see we have everything that we need for Bootstrap. The CDN is there. Now, if I take this, go ahead and let's see, edit this attribute so that we have an invalid path to, let's say, this right here. You can see the fonts break, so we're definitely making use of the Bootstrap file here from this CDN. All right, so we're going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and now we're going to start using the package managers. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is initialize our folder, and I'm going to back out to the root. So I'm going to ls this, there's our source folder, and I'm going to type in npm init. So after you've installed Node.js, you should be able to access npm from the command line like this. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. There's going to be a few prompts here, and you can use a -y command line switch if you just want to blow through all of these like I'm going to do here by pressing enter. So I'm just going to take the defaults of everything. And notice some of the values here. We have hello world for the package name, the version. We have our entry point file. I'm just going to go ahead and go out of this. Everything is good. Yes, it's going to create a new file, package.json. So if I go over here, this is some of the values that we saw earlier. So this is entry point. They call it main here. And our package.json, just for npm's purposes, tells it what all the various dependencies are and gives it some metadata about our project. So now we're going to install Bootstrap using the package manager. So we saw a little bit of that on the Bootstrap website. So if I go back over there and go to Bootstrap, go to home, scroll down, we have this right here. You can see npm. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this right here and copy. And we're going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and I'll paste this and install. So that's going to take just a little bit to download. Now we get a new folder, Node Modules. And if I open Node Modules, you can see Bootstrap is there. So all of our packages that we download through npm are going to appear here, along with any of their dependencies. So there are a few more packages that we're going to install. We're going to do an npm install jQuery. That's going to download, and we're going to get an npm install tether as well. Tether is used by Bootstrap for UI layouts. You'll notice it's not showing them over here. That's just because of refreshing, so it hasn't refreshed, but those package folders are going to be inside of Node Modules. And in fact, if I ls, we can see here we've got our Node Modules. I'll change into Node Modules. Actually, we want an S. Let's see, just get that spelled right. All right, and ls that. So you can see we have Bootstrap, jQuery, and Tether. So everything is there. And going to go ahead and get out of that. So back in the root. Now, one thing we're going to also need is another one called gulp. Gulp is going to be used to compile our Sass into CSS, which we're going to explore a little bit more. So if you're new to Sass, you'll just get a very quick introduction to it, but you're going to see it being used quite a bit inside of the course. So I'm going to do an npm install gulp like this. There's a few switches we need here. We're going to do browser sync as well, and gulp Sass. That's going to do the pre-compilation of Sass into CSS. Browser sync is actually going to do some injection for us into the browser. And then I'm going to do 2 hyphens save 1 hyphen dev. So it's going to create a local dependency for this project rather than some kind of global installation. Go ahead and let that go. And we're going to see some new dependencies pop up inside of this package JSON once everything's completed and downloaded. All right, so there we go. And you can see here we have these dev dependencies, of course. We are going to actually make everything local. So right now we have these CDNs that we're calling out to, and we have to be connected to the internet to make use of those. We want our environment contained so that everything is local. That way, if you're even on an airplane, you have no Wi-Fi, you can still work. And a lot of this is going to come out of this folder here. And if I click on my Node Modules and click right here, I can go ahead and refresh everything. Let's open that now. You can see there's quite a few of them in here. So we're going to change these routes right here so that we are using the local versions. So I'm going to take this first one, which is pointing to our Bootstrap, and I'm going to change the location. So what we want to do is create a folder that's going to contain our CSS, our JavaScript, and our Sass files. So I'm going to close this Node Modules. Inside of source, we're going to create these folders. So we're going to have a JS folder. We're going to have a CSS folder. Put that here so it's at the root. And we're going to have one more, which is our Sass files. So we're going to change this now so that it's pointing to CSS. Just change that. So right now we don't have a file in here. We're going to take care of that a little bit later when we get into use of gulp. So right now that is pointing to our file. I'm going to go ahead and remove this metadata from this link up here. We're going to have a style.css as well. So I'm just going to change or paste this here, and we're going to create that file there, or that reference. Now down here, we can go ahead and start making a few changes. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We're going to put in a reference to js/jquery.min.js, and just going to remove some of this metadata and copy, since this is the simplified version of that, and paste here. So the next JS we're going to have is going to go to Tether. I'm going to do one more. This is going to go to actually Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is the last one in this chain, because it's going to be dependent on these other two. All right, so now our basic layout of this HTML file looks a little bit different, at least as far as the code goes. We're no longer dependent on these external files that we have to retrieve from the internet. Now we can work locally. Of course, we need to get these files into their proper locations, and that's what we're going to do next.